everyone. Hope you're well. It's Thursday evening. It's the 20th of April 2017, and tonight I'm joined alongside a good friend, a business partner to the name of Neil Ward. Neil, are you online?
I am, Arsh. Good evening, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to be online with you this evening.
Fantastic. Okay, so just so that we know that we've got everyone and they can hear us nice and loudly and clearly, would you mind just letting us just send a quick hello to let us know that you're online and you can hear us? Just making sure. Let's see if anyone's come on through. Okay. So yeah, okay, brilliant. So Bavik says that yes, can hear you both. Well, fantastic. Okay, brilliant. Right, tonight it's not like a presentation. Tonight is all about you guys. So it is very much an interactive session. Now, over the next few minutes, we're going to be just introducing ourselves, who we are, and why we're here. So now this is your perfect opportunity to start typing in your questions. So as the screen clearly states, tonight we're doing the rent-to-rent Q&A session, which means that could be anywhere, any question, anything surrounding rent-to-rent. So if you want, you can start writing, start typing your questions, and then when we get to the Q&A session, we can start moving through them. So first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for trusting Neil and I with your time this evening. Time is the most precious commodity, and I guarantee that it's going to be a great investment that it'll be the best investment that you can make. So why should you listen to us? First of all, I'm the best-selling author of a book called Boom, Bust and Back Again. I've been involved in property full-time 17 years, so you could say I'm a bit of a property veteran who has earned his scars. I run a national letting agency and have done for the last 8 years, and is in the process of being franchised, called Rent Me Now. In just under 2 years, I built quite a significant rent-to-rent portfolio that gives me just under £25,000 a month cash flow. And I'm also a property investor, I'm a property trainer, and I'm also a property mentor that's helped hundreds, if not thousands of people that are hungry for change to achieve financial freedom. So that's enough about me. I'm going to now introduce Neil Ward. He's going to tell you a little bit about who he is and what he's done.
Great, thank you, Arsh. Again, good evening, everybody. So nice that so many people have tuned in this evening. This is actually one of our largest turnouts, so that's great. So I have not been doing property as long as Arsh. Arsh is a 20-year veteran now. I actually started in 2005, and slowly but surely I built up a small single-let portfolio, and that went very well. I mean, it was very easy back then as well. If you're just starting out now, it's getting even more difficult if you're buying to hold. It's getting very difficult now, especially with all the changes last year. But let me take you back to 2005. In 2005, you could buy houses very cheaply, and you could get 100% mortgages on them. So what a lot of us used to do was we would put down a small deposit, buy a house that needed a little bit of work, renovate that house, release a deposit, and rinse and repeat, and buy another house, another house, another house. So it's very easy to build up a portfolio very nicely. However, then there was the crash in 2008. I think everybody got hit by that. But as I always say, you only lose if you sell. So I didn't sell. I hold on to what I had and got through the storm. And these things happen all the time, you know, in property. You always have recessions, you always have crashes, you have price rises, etc. So that's the first thing to sort of be aware of. Now, I got into rent-to-rent because I was looking for a different strategy that could give me a lot of recurring income every month. I was already doing deal sourcing and packaging, and that was good, but it was a hustle for me every day. I had to keep working. So when I saw the rent-to-rent strategy, I thought, right, so I can just get this house ready once. I take it on, I renovate it, and then I just rent out the rooms every month. It was so simple. I thought it was too good to be true. When I got into it, I was just amazed at how easy it was to build this up very quickly, build up a large amount of houses, and each, I mean, the minimum is £500 profit a month on a house. And some houses, you know, you can make £2,000 a month. So that's why I got into it, and I built up a very large portfolio in just 2 years, which really did give me complete financial freedom alongside the other things I was doing. But if I didn't have other businesses and I just had this one business, this would have given me complete financial freedom in just 1 year of work. So I'd say that's the main thing I want to get across to you. I do own other companies now. The rent-to-rent business is one of them. I own the Forward Thinking Group, and I guess you could say I'm an entrepreneur. So that's a good introduction to me, and I'm really looking forward just to chatting and answering your questions, and let's see how we can help you this evening.
Okay, so pretty much that's the intro is all done, and as I've promoted and as I've said, tonight is all about the content. It's all about going through the questions, seeing how we can help. And I've just been flicking through some of the questions. You know, there's some fantastic questions coming through. So we're going to start with, hopefully I'll pronounce your name correctly, it's Kuda. Right, straight away. How can I find a deal within London? Right, Neil, do you want to answer this, or shall I? Or
I'll let you take the first question, Arsh.
Okay, right. Kuda. Now, interestingly enough, I'm a big believer that when people tell you that something's not possible, I go and do completely the opposite. I will go out and prove them that it is possible. And your question is exactly that. Now, people say rent-to-rent can't work in the capital. Rent-to-rent won't work in the city. Rent-to-rent, the lettings market is too buoyant and too aggressive in London for landlords to be able to give me their property. I look at it in a different way, and I think, well, in actual fact, London is a city which has got very high cost of living, and it also has got high debt levels because the property prices are so high. As a result of that, there's additional pressure on each people to maintain their mortgages. Now, for argument's sake, I know that there's lots of people, lots of property investors out there that where their property portfolios are actually losing money, especially in London, because the rents are just about covering the mortgage. In some places, the landlords are actually subsidising the mortgages, and the reason they're doing that, and the reason why they're going through this process, is because they're playing the long-term game. They're playing the capital growth game as opposed to the cash flow game. Now, in the Midlands, up north, you know, it's very easy to make a property cash flow, whereas in London, because the property values are a lot higher, which means that the gearing and the property debt is a lot higher. It means that the cost to maintain these properties are also a lot higher. So believe it or not, I believe in that two main words, and I use these in my property journey on a day-to-day basis. They're called pain and motivation. Once you understand what the pain and once you understand what the motivation is, you should be able to do a deal with any property investor, any estate agent, any letting agent, anywhere in the country. And I pretty much promote this on a day-to-day basis. And the reason why I say that is because we do deals with people up and down the country on a day-to-day basis, and that includes London. Now, when it comes to how do I find a deal within London, it's very simple. You've got to either find, the first thing that you've got to do is you've got to find a suitable property, and you've got to find a suitable property that's available. And all you've got to do, very simply, you've got to make sure that that figure, that it stacks up to run as a multi-let. Now, how are you going to find it and where you're going to find it? Now, naturally, the first thing I'm going to say to you is that it all comes down to how creative you are. How creative you are in finding deals. Now, the most common way that people find deals, believe it or not, is via via letting agencies. Now, you're going to say, well, who's going to give me a deal via a letting agent? Now, I've trained people, I've trained hundreds of people, and believe it or not, there's lots of people that come and see me from London. And there's a young gentleman that I'm going to be talking to at the end of this presentation. He's actually based in Croydon, and he does deals in and around London on a daily basis, just purely because he's understood what they need to say. When you're going to, the beauty with rent to rent is that you need to basically not even convince, but you need to inform the landlord of why you're a better bet than any single let tenant, and why you're a better bet than any letting agent in that area. What is it that makes you special, that they're then going to trust you with their property? Does that kind of make sense? And it's only once you've got that, that's your USP, that's your unique selling point. Once you've got that, it doesn't matter where the property is, anywhere in the country. You can pretty much go to any landlord and say, okay, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is what I can offer you. And as a result of that, once they stack up all the benefits of what you can do in comparison to a traditional letting agent, there's no reason why you shouldn't walk away with the property. I hope that kind of answers your question. Neil, have you got anything to answer to that? Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of something tangible that you can do. I mean, straight away, Arsh and I differ on a lot of points, and it's common. You know, we laugh and joke about it, but I don't use letting agents. I do other things such as letter writing or advertising or networking. And again, Arsh agrees with all three of these strategies as well. So, you know, one thing you could do straight away is you could place an advert on Gumtree, for example, in the property wanted section, completely free, and you just, you know, say what you're looking for a property on a sort of business let, or however you want to phrase it, a corporate agreement, and just put the benefits of what you're offering, and you'll be quite surprised by how many responses you get from that. I get anywhere from 1 to 4 good leads per month from Gumtree. This is just one of my strategies. I have half a dozen strategies that I use for marketing. But just a simple advert on Gumtree will bring you anywhere from 1 or 2 within your first month of good leads. And then you'll probably get 5 or 6 bad leads. But that's one thing that you can do that's tangible right away tonight.
Okay, brilliant. So Kuda's asked a few questions, and I will go through the questions, Kuda. I'm just trying to go through them so that everyone gets a chance at asking a question. Now, here we go. So, okay, here's an interesting one. So Mehmet is online. Mehmet, welcome. He goes, how can I get involved in this as an experienced estate agent? Wow. Okay, Mehmet, I'm going to be completely honest here. You have got so much power and the ability to be able to do this. All you need to do is become familiar with your creative flair. As an estate agent, you're already in a great position. You get to see all the deals. Now, for argument's sake, as an experienced estate agent, believe it or not, Mehmet, rent to rent may not be your thing. As an estate agent, have you ever thought of the fact that you could potentially be a prolific deal sourcer? I'm thinking outside the box here because I've never met you, Mehmet. I'm just going on what you've typed in the box here. But as an experienced estate agent, think of all the deals that you see. Think of all the properties that you see. Think of all the secrets that you hear before anyone even gets to see that property's been listed. You know about the pain and motivation before anyone else. You know why that person is trying to sell that property. You know the real reason why they need to move quickly. Have you ever thought that that might be a better way than rent to rent? The reason why I say that is because I do both. I do rent to rent and I deal trade. And there's nothing wrong with that, because once a property is set up on a rent to rent and a HMO basis, there's very little for you to do with that property. So you've got to find something else to fill your time to generate more cash flow. Yes, you can go off and find more properties to do on rent to rent, but I also prefer doing deal trading. It's quicker, it's a little bit more exciting. So, you know, have you ever thought about it that way? As an experienced estate agent, you'll already have a lot of the skills required to negotiate with a landlord, because on a day-to-day basis, you're having to negotiate not only with people looking to buy property, but also the people looking to sell their property. You're trying to get their properties on your books. And that's exactly the same with rent to rent. All you've got to do is negotiate with the landlord. You've got to get his property off him, and he's got to trust you. the beautiful thing with you, Mehmet, is that you could potentially boast the fact that you've got lots of property experience, you've worked with a number of estate agents, or you've handled millions of pounds worth of property, and that will give any owner a lot of confidence. On the reverse side of it, you may have lots of other property estate agency friends who will also trust you because of your knowledge in the property field. So you need to think, and you need to become a little bit creative with what you're doing, because you're in a fantastic position and you could very easily get a lot of deals, whether that be rent to rent or whether that be deal sourcing. So hopefully that's give you something to think about. Neil, you got anything to add to that?
No, that was good, Ash. That's fine.
Okay, so Babik's come in with a question. He goes, if, for instance, I agree a 5-year rent-to-rent deal with a landlord and the market changes, i.e. rents typically go up and the landlord demands more rent, would there be a clause in the contract to mitigate this happening? Neil, do you want to start with this?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Now, let's say you take on a 5-year agreement. There is no clause within that agreement that states that there's going to be a rent rise. It's just not in there. So if a landlord then, so let's look at this 2 ways. So firstly then, if a landlord came back to you after 3 years and said, right, the price have gone up in this area, I want another £200 a month, then you would simply say, well, we've got a contract. It's 5 years at this price. So that's that. And if they said, well, I don't care, I want more money, then, they can't get more money. There's a contract there. It's 5 years at that price. It's like, I don't know if you have broadband at home, but let's say you're paying £30 a month. You wouldn't just then say, well, actually, I only want to pay £20 a month. I've just decided I want to pay £20 a month now. It doesn't work like that. A contract's a contract. Now, the second part I'll say on this. Most of the time, if I go over a 3-year agreement, so if I do a 5 or longer agreement, the landlord in most cases will ask for a clause that states that they want a rent rise. That is quite common. It happens a lot. So I actually did a rent-to-rent agreement 2 weeks ago with a landlord, and he said he wants a rent review at year 3. Well, actually, he said at year 1, and I said, no, that's not going to happen. So he said year 2, and I said no, and then he said year 3. So I put a clause into the contract that stated that there would be a rent review at year 3, and it would be no more than a 10% increase. Now you see, the reason I was happy with that is because he only wanted to do a 3-year agreement. Now bear in mind, it's going to cost me about £2,500 to £3,000 for the renovation of the property to get it ready. At the end of 3 years, I don't want that property to go back to him. I don't want him to say, right, it's 3 years, you're only paying me this amount, I know I can get a lot more now. So for the sake of having 2 more years for me, at an extra £500 profit a month, that's £6,000 a year, that's £12,000 over 2 years. For the sake of an extra £50, what's that? That's 600, that's 1,200. So it's peanuts. To give him that clause, paying an extra 1,200 is peanuts compared to the 12,000 I'm going to make. So that would be the way I would look at that question.
Okay. The bit I might just want to add to that. The beautiful thing with rent to rent is that it is all down to subject to negotiation. The reason why I say that is because if you were to buy a property, there is no negotiation with the mortgage company. When you buy the property, the mortgage company determines the terms of that agreement, and it's either a case of yes, you take it or you lump it. Now with rent to rent, it very much is negotiation based. Now for argument's sake, I took a property on just under a month ago, and this is going to shock you actually. I like taking 7-year agreements. I think the longer the better, and the longer it gives the landlord more security. So I took on a 7-year agreement. Now the property is in need of around £15,000 refurb. Now I know Neil wouldn't touch something like that because it requires too much capital input. However, what I managed to do, I managed to negotiate a 12-month rent-free period, which meant that for that year, I was going to be able to recoup my costs, and only then was my 7-year period going to start thereafter. The reason why it worked so well is because the landlord didn't have the money to do the property. It's already been sat empty for previous 12 months. And we were going to bring the property back into play, which means that at the moment his property had decreased in value due to decrepitation of the property or dilapidation of the property. And as a result of my capital input, as a result of my time and effort, we were then going to bring the property back up to standard, which would increase in value, and as a result, the landlord doesn't have to worry about the property getting broken into and decreasing any further. Okay, so hopefully that helps. And the reason why I had to mention that is because no two deals are the same. Now, every deal that you go to, you will find a new landlord with a new problem. And the beautiful thing with being a rent-to-renter is that you're a problem solver. You have to go there with almost like a box of tricks or a toolbox of solutions, because every time you go to a landlord, it's going to be something different. And you need to make sure that you've got the solution in order for it to seal the deal. So, okay, moving on. Okay, so Neil, do you want to answer this one? So this is from Chain from Manchester. It goes, hi, I'm from Manchester, which is in the Article 4 area, which can it still work for rent to rent?
Okay, yeah, I can answer that one. Now, I know Manchester. I go up there from time to time for business, and I actually have a client up there as well. So I'm pretty sure that not all of Manchester is Article 4, unless I'm mistaken here. I thought there's a certain area that within Manchester that isn't Article 4, but I'd have to check that. But there's also an area between Liverpool and Manchester as well, which is quite a good location, and that's not Article 4. So there's other options before I go on to the next part. There's other options if your area isn't Article 4. Look elsewhere. Look around that area. Maybe you might have to go 20 minutes one way, 20 minutes the other way, but you can still achieve the same thing. You don't need to have, say, 40 houses in the same area like me and Arsh do. You might have 10 in one area, 10 in another, etc. The bottom line is making the profit a month, because you're not going to have to drive to these areas anyway. You get a property manager to deal with it. The next part of the answer then, in terms of if it is Article 4. The great thing about the landlords there is that they're in a really strong position now, that the value of those properties is very high, because no one else is allowed to go in and create an HMO, which for the new people online stands for House of Multiple Occupancy. There's unlicensed and licensed HMOs. So either way, whether it's licensed or unlicensed, no one else can go into that area and take a residential house and turn it into an HMO now. So what I would look at doing, there's something called an HMO register, and every council in the UK has to have one of these. Now, you can request that under a Freedom of Information Act request. You could request that register. And what it will do, it will show you all the houses that are on the register, and it will tell you who the landlords are and where they live as well. So if it were me, and you really wanted to stay in that area, there's quite a simple solution. Get that register, write to all the landlords, and again, you're just going to use the same sort of letter template that Arsh and I give to people, whoever do training with us. You'll use that letter, send it out to them, and you're going to get a response. So that's what I would look at if I was in your position.
Okay, that's a good answer. So, taking on existing HMOs. Okay, so going through. So, okay, so just whilst we're on that point, Adam has come in and says, all right, just for clarity, what is Article 4? So Article 4, one thing I would suggest is that before you embark on this journey, regardless of where you are in your location, I would pretty much go to Google and type in what is Article 4 Directive. Article 4 Directive was brought in by the local authority, where each local council has the right to apply Article 4 in your area by doing consultation. The reason why we say that is because lots of local councils seem to think that HMOs are popping up left, right, and centre, and they need to try and bring some form of control into their local borough. The reason why I also say that is because there are streets in Wolverhampton where I own a large majority of, and I've got HMO after HMO after HMO after HMO. Now, when you look at a house, a traditional 3 or 4 bedroom house, they were predominantly based, originally built for a family of 4 people, or let's say between 3 and 4 people. Now, if I was to turn that into a 6-bed HMO, I'm now increasing the density of that street by another 2 people, which is another 33% in one house. Now, if I've got 7 or 8 houses on that street, I've then, instead of just put another 2 people in, I've actually just put another 16 people in, which means that there's going to be, it's going to have an impact on the local amenity. It's going to have a local impact. Well, I'm not going to say crime rate, but naturally, it's going to have local impact on the more people. Now, if 6 people live in a house, potentially 6 guests could come and visit, which means that instead of 6 people being there may be 12 people being there. And the reason why councils are worried about this is just purely because the number of people that are living and the high amount of density of people in one certain location. And every town, every city has a certain area where it is heavily populated with HMOs. And that's why they've started to increase Article 4 into certain locations. Now, if you want to find out if your area is an Article 4 area, all you've got to do, the place that I generally go is I look at the RLA website, which is the Residential Landlords Association website. And if you go into the search engine and type in Article 4, it will give you a whole list of all the areas which are currently being registered as Article 4. Now, unfortunately, Wolverhampton is due to become an Article 4 area. I'm partly to blame for that, but in the same respect, I kind of welcome Article 4 in Wolverhampton, because every property investor seems to, I don't know whether it's me, I don't know whether it's other training companies, but everyone seems to think that, oh, Wolverhampton is quite a buoyant area, and they're sending everyone to Wolverhampton, everyone's creating a HMO, which means that it's creating more competition for me, for my tenants. But when Article 4 comes in, naturally, that's going to pretty much pull up the ladder, which means that if you're a property investor and you're looking to create HMO in Wolverhampton, you will then require planning permission. Now, planning permission, there's no guarantee that it's going to be accepted. Now, I can imagine for the first couple of years, all applications being refused, just so that they can calm down the number and actually take stock of how many HMOs there are in Wolverhampton. So that's what Article 4 is. So in a nutshell, it's going to be, they're going to be introducing Article 4 areas in more places around the country after consultation, and the whole point of it is to take control of how many HMOs are propping up in and around the country. So hopefully that helps. So here's a question for you, Neil. Hilary Boucher-Royce, who I'm due to meet in a couple of weeks. Hi, Hilary. Do you have your own property managers, or do you put rent to rent with agents? Now, it's a good question. Neil, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. I have a property manager. So all of my properties are in one area, which makes it easier, because if you're in multiple areas, you're not going to be able to just use one property manager. I know some people that do, but they have a high turnover of property managers. I've got the same property manager working with me that I did from day one when I started. So personally, I just think it's a lot easier to keep your properties in one area, have one property manager. But if you can't do that and you do have property spread over multiple areas, what I would recommend is that you use a local agent. Now, you don't want to go for a franchise or anyone that's big and well known. You want to go for someone that's really small and not very well known, someone that's looking to get started, or they're a new agency, because they'll be really keen to get clients and get that income building, because a lot of agents fail it within their first year. They go out of business. So it's good if you can find someone like that, give them some properties and have them to actually look after them for you. And then what you would have is like a handyman or a maintenance person in that area as well. So if any calls come through in terms from the tenant, they go to the agent takes that call, and if it's a maintenance issue, it gets passed on to the maintenance person. They go in, do the work, and so that's the way that I would look at it. I think that would probably be a lot easier.
Okay. Right. Fantastic. With me, I own a letting agency, so I pass all mine through my letting agency. So you could say that in essence, I've got a property manager too. Um, so Anton's asked a question. He goes, Anton says, can you do rent to rent on a house converted into two flats? Right. Okay, Anton, that's a good question because yes, I've got rent to rent on a property that's been converted into two flats. I've got a rent to rent on a property that's been converted into five flats. The beautiful thing with rent to rent is that you could actually do rent. I've done rent to rent on a single let. So I took the property. If the figures stack up, there's no reason why you can't take the property off a landlord and rent it out to a normal family and do it as a single let. Now, I've done that where I'm paying the landlord in Wolverhampton for a two-bed mid-terrace house. I think I'm paying him £250 a month, and I'm renting it out for £550 a month. Now, okay, you're going to say that's not very exciting, but when you look at it from the other point of view, what have I had to do to generate that kind of cash flow? Very little, because as a single let, do I have to turn it into a multi-let? No, I don't. Do I have to mess about with all the staging and all the furnishings? No, I don't. Do I have to pay any utilities? No, I don't. So it can work as a single let. It can work as a block of flats. It can work as a multi-let. The beautiful thing with rent to rent is that you only accept it if it makes financial sense. You don't have to physically, no one's forcing you to accept it, and it's only once you put the figures into everyone should have what I call a rent to rent calculator or cash flow calculator. I've got a calculator that I can pretty much put the figures in, and it's pretty much like a computer says yes or no. I will, after putting the figures in the basic figures into a calculator, it will tell me roughly what's going to be my kind of cash flow. It's going to tell me how long it's going to take to recoup my initial investment. It's going to tell me what my break-even point is, and also it's going to tell me whether it's a viable transaction to do. And everyone should have one of those. Okay, let's keep moving on then. Let's keep moving on. There's lots of questions. I'm trying to give everyone an opportunity. We've got lots of questions by the same people, so I'm trying to give everyone an opportunity to answer, get a question. Okay. So John Wright, he goes, I'm based in South Wales. How do I evaluate an area to see if it has a viable market? Neil, do you want to answer?
Yeah, sure. Okay, that is a really tricky question because when Arsh and I run a course, we usually spend about minimum of 2 hours actually going through all of that. It's not a quick and easy answer. I've heard a lot of webinars years ago where trainers would give an answer, and it does more harm than good because each area that I analyze, I would say there are around 15 to 20 variables. So everything from license, unlicensed, the size of the property, so 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, 10 bedrooms, 15 bedrooms. There's all that, and then there's looking at the demographic of the area, whether you're looking at professionals, students, workers, LHA, business areas nearby, schools. It's an absolute minefield. So Arsh and I actually cover that on our training course. We spend at least 2 hours on that so that everybody analyzes at least 2 or 3 areas. And from that, you sort of get your gold mine area, and then you can go off and get started in that area. So I wish I could give you an easy answer, but I think if I did, it would do more harm than it would good. So Arsh, have you got anything to add to that?
I suppose one thing that we can add to that, John, is first of all, is just check. As I previously just said, is that HMOs are propping up left, right, and centre. So you need to first of all check: is there a massive demand for HMOs in your location? First thing that you could do, I suppose you could literally go onto Spare Room and see how many properties are being offered and how many people are looking. That's the most easiest thing that everyone can do. That's online. Everyone's got access to that information and that data. With regards to seeing if it's viable, as Neil said, there's a number of things that you've got to look at. You've got to have a look at capital input. You've got to have a look at break even, and you've got to have a look at, if you're only taking a 3-year agreement and it's taking you 2.5 years to break even, You've got to ask yourself, is it really viable for 6 months worth of cash flow? Personally, I'd say no, because I really want to break even within the first between 6 and 8 months. Maximum 8 months. But everyone's different. Everyone's got their figure, should I say? Um, so hopefully that helps. And if we can be of any more, if you think that we need to home in on that question anymore, feel free to send me a message. Right, going through. Okay, so here's one that Savas has come in, and a couple of people have asked to go. Not sure if it's already mentioned, but what are the legalities do we need to be aware of to be running as a rent-to-rent operator? So Neil, do you want to mention this one?
Okay. Now, again, in terms of sort of legalities and things, it changes all the time. So the main thing that came in a few years ago, there was a big issue, but I won't mention the guy's name, but many of you, if you were around a few years ago, will know of this, where he took on like 100 rent-to-rents, took on all these deposits, and then he did a runner with tens of thousands of pounds of deposits. And when that came to light, actually, the news actually tracked him down, and there was a big thing on it, and they challenged him, and all this sort of business. But getting to the point, from that, the government introduced new sort of rules for rent-to-rent people, and it's called the PRS, Property Redress Scheme. So legally, you have to be a member of this scheme, and it costs, I think it's about £100. Mine's on auto renewal, so it's been a few years since I looked at it, but I think it's like £100 a year. But remember, you don't actually have to sign up to that until you've got your first rent-to-rent deal anyway. So if you're just trying to figure it out and figure out where your goldmine area is and how to get properties and things, you don't have to join this straight away. So that's the most important thing, I'd say. You also want to make sure that you get insurance. So whether you're doing this as a limited company or whether you're doing it as self-assessment, and actually my advice has started to change on which way to go with all the new government changes, and the taxes now that we're being hit with as a limited company. A lot of the benefits are no longer there. Yeah. Arsh, what was the question again?
It says, what are the legalities? What do you need to be members of?
Okay. So that's the first thing. You want to make sure you got your liability insurance as well. So that's public liability insurance, which is different from your professional liability insurance. So public is whereby, let's say this actually happened to me. A tenant of mine said that he took a shower and got scolded, and he wanted to take me to court for thousands of pounds in damages and all this. And I thought, how has this even happened? Is this a scam? What's going on here? And he'd only been in the house for 1 day, so I thought it was a bit of a scam. And it all went to court and all this sort of business. And I got the electrician, I got the plumber in to do tests and all this, and all the tests passed. So we thought it was a bit of a scam. And then he couldn't prove the medical records or anything like that. So the point of this is you've got to make sure that you've got your insurance, because if someone tries to sue you or anything like that, you need to be covered. And you need the insurance anyway to be part of the PRS, the Property Redress Scheme. I'd also recommend that you sign up to like the landlord courses. Like the NLA stands for National Landlord Association, and they run a 1-day course which basically says that you're a competent landlord. So I did that one. I did the local one here in the Midlands. So I have all these different certificates. So if I ever go to a landlord and they're a bit sort of standoffish, I'll pull out all these certificates, and that just completely eliminates all that sort of skepticism straight away, because they see all these certificates, they've got the social proof is there then. So that's the main thing on the legalities of what you actually need to do. Now, if we've got another question on the legalities of the agreement, we can also talk about that. Arsh, do you want me to mention that as well?
Yeah. Whilst you're going, yeah, keep going.
Okay. So a lot of people get this completely wrong. They think rent to rent is subletting. but it's not. It's absolutely nothing like subletting, because subletting is to take on a property on an AST, which stands for Assured Short Hold Tenancy Agreement, and then to let that property out by the room on ASTs, so room only ASTs. Now that's subletting, and people say, oh, it's illegal. Well, it's not illegal, but it breaches insurance and mortgage terms and conditions, so you would never do it. It's a big no-no. But yeah, a lot of people that do rent to rent who have never done training or got any advice do this, and it's a minefield. And if you ever need to go to court or evict someone and you've done it in this way, good luck, because the judge is going to throw it out and you're going to be stuck with that tenant. So you've got to be really careful. Now, actually, the way rent to rent works is that you use a management agreement, and I spent thousands of pounds having my management agreement created, and it's just so strong that I've never had an issue. You know, you hear all the time people saying that they've got this legal issue with rent to rent. Yeah, it's because they're using the wrong agreements. They're using all the corporate lets and all this other business, which it's not. You're not doing a corporate let. Again, I have this argument with other people all the time, or other rent to rent trainers, because they say, you know, we're doing a corporate let. No, you're not. A corporate let is where you take on a property as a company and you put your own employees in there. That isn't what rent to rent is. You're not putting your own employees in. So you need a rent to rent management agreement. And again, I'll get loads of blowback on this, but I've been doing this for so long now, and I've spoken to so many solicitors, and that's what everybody says, the experts say. So the difference again with rent to rent is that you're doing it as a management agreement. You're not doing it as subletting or anything like that. So with your management agreement, you're working on behalf of the landlord. So that landlord, whether that's a man or a lady, owns that property. Their name goes on the AST. Your name also goes on the AST after theirs as the manager. So that management agreement basically says, just like a letting agent would, we are managing that property on your behalf, and we're guaranteeing you a rent. So that's the sort of legalities around rent to rent and the contracts as well. So Arsh, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think you've covered pretty much a lot there, mate.
Okay.
Okay, right. Just going through some of the questions. Okay, so Adam asked the question here. It goes, is it better for HMO to have a professional tenant or DSS? So do you want to answer that one, Neil?
Arsh, I'm going to let you have that one, because you do DSS, whereas I don't. So I couldn't really compare the two.
Okay, so I've got a mixture too. So I've got professionals and I've got DSS, and it all depends on how competent you are. Now, I know one of the other questions which I can tie into this, they said, well, can you tell me how you get paid from the DSS? So let's just work on the basis that, well, first of all, a couple of things that you've got to be aware of, Adam, is that benefits market is becoming tighter and tighter and tougher to deal with, because tenants are being paid direct. Tenants are having their benefits being paid direct. Long gone are the days where the landlord was getting direct payment. So that's something for you to take into consideration. So the risk element now is pretty much on par as a professional tenant, because the difference being is that before, landlords would get paid direct and it was pretty much guaranteed income. Whereas now, if it's going to a tenant who's on benefits, the chances of them handing it over may be slim to none. So that's something to take into consideration. Beautiful thing that I find with professional tenants is that they have a lot more in respect of guarantors, and I always generally tend to lean towards someone that's got a guarantor, and that guarantor has to be a homeowner. If that homeowner is willing to vouch for that tenant, we're going to take them every day of the week, just purely because if anything happens, we're going to go straight to the guarantor and they're going to either cough up or we're going to try and put a charge against their property. So that's the way that I would operate it. So regardless whether they're benefit tenants or professionals, always look for a guarantor. That's probably my top tip for the evening. So having a look at some more questions. Right, Anton has asked the question, is a 2-hour drive too far to manage a property? In short, yes. If you're self-managing, you don't want to be any more than half an hour away from the property. Unless you've got a competent, the other way that you can do that, and the reason why I say this is you could potentially find or what in all my HMOs, I've got almost like a head tenant in each property. That head tenant will act as my eyes and ears on the ground in that property, which means that I don't have to visit that property very often. I've got things from a small 4-bed HMO right up to a 23-bed HMO. Then in the 23-bed HMO, it takes me on average around an hour a week to manage, just purely because I've got the caretaker in place who looks after the day-to-day running of it. So if there's an issue, all the tenants have to go to the caretaker. If the caretaker can't deal with it, that's where they will contact me, and that's where I will deal with it. So you've got to put systems and procedures in place if you are thinking about taking on a property 2 hours away and so on. Okay, so keep going through. Joan has asked a question, goes, I'm based in Spain, considering what I can apply, whether I can apply the model here. Up to now, I've been buying properties and renting them out. Thank you. Okay, so Joan, believe it or not, it can work anywhere in the world. Rent to rent can work anywhere in the world, providing that there's sufficient demand in that location. Now, for argument's sake, you may decide to adapt the model slightly. So instead of running it as a HMO, depending on what part of Spain you're in, you could potentially run it as a serviced accommodation unit, which means that you could run it as a holiday short let. Now, I don't know what the legislation is in Spain, and the one thing that I'd recommend is that you do check on your local legislation, especially if you're in a different country, as to what the rules are with regards to short lets. So if you're in a great area where it attracts great tourists, a lot of tourism, one thing that you could do is do a rent-to-rent off a landlord. So take the property off the landlord and then rent it out either by the room or by the night, which is very similar to a hotel or an Airbnb, and do it that way. The beautiful thing is that you've still got control of the property, and as a result, you decide to do what you do with the property from there on. There are lots of people in the UK that are doing that strategy at present. They're taking blocks of flats on. They're taking 1 and 2 bedroom flats on in high density locations like Manchester, Liverpool, and London, and they're renting them out by the room. They're renting them out by the night, not the room. Just quickly going through the questions. Okay, so hi Neil and Arsh. After 3 years of both of you building and managing your HMO property portfolios, does it still hold that if you stay with 4 tenants only to keep? Does it still hold that if you stay with 4 tenants only to keep hassle and maintenance costs to a minimum? And that's from Nigel. Neil, do you want to answer that?
I didn't understand that, Arsh. It was too wordy. Nigel,
Okay.
can you just type that question again, and we'll go to the next question, Arsh, and then we'll come back to that. Just type it as if really simply, please.
Okay, so Larita's just asked just on following on from Spain, can rent-to-rental service accommodation strategies work in Denmark? Of course they can. You know, these strategies can work in any country all over the world. The fact is that you've got to identify, is there sufficient demand, especially if you're doing it for stuff like service accommodation, as to whether people, whether I would look at this, Larita, is how many hotels are there in this location? How many times are those hotels been booked up? Now, if you were to put in an accommodation which also acts as a night let, shall we say, would it still book up? Of course it would. Now, for argument's sake, you look in, when you go away from your property for a weekend, do you book a hotel or do you book a serviced apartment? Now, serviced apartments are becoming more and more popular because it's almost like a home from home. When you go from a serviced apartment, you've got a lounge, you've got a sitting room, you've got a bedroom, you've got a bathroom, etc., etc. Whereas in a hotel, if you go to a Premier Inn, you've got that one room and that's it. A service apartment is a lot more comfortable. It's a little bit more luxurious, and it's the same kind of money as a hotel. So that's something that you've got to take into consideration. So quite a few people, Neil, are asking whether they can purchase our letters, whether they can purchase our management agreement. So I'm going to leave that for you to think. So John's asked, would you sell our rent-to-rent management agreement? Would we sell our letters that we send out to landlords? So that's just something for you to think about towards the end. Now, believe it or not,
Okay.
guys, we're in our last 10 minutes. And in the last 10 minutes, we've also got to cover, we've got to tell you about something that we're going to be running shortly as well. So here's a question back from our friend. It goes, hi Neil and Arsh, if you let on, if you let only 4 rooms as opposed to 5, 6 or
Yeah.
plus, does it generally reduce the maintenance costs and tenant issues?
Okay, thank you. I understand now. So the answer to that is yes, very simply. The more rooms you have, the more maintenance that you usually get. But on the flip side of that, there's another way to look at it, and that is you could have, let's say you had 20 rooms in one HMO where you have one boiler. Well, that means that if you had a 4-bed house, you're going to need 5 of those boilers, to make the same amount of people. So you've got 5 times the chance of, let's say, a boiler having an issue. So it's, flip a coin on that one. But yes, the answer really simply is yes, having a smaller property with less maintenance. But at the same time, if you've got more smaller properties, you're probably going to have more of the uncommon things that happen. So I don't, it's not something that I've ever tracked, but it's just something to be aware of.
Can I butt in there? Because
Yeah.
the way that I see this is, if you're gonna be a bear, you might as well be a grizzly bear and go and make as much noise as you can. Now, the way that I look at it is, for a HMO, if you're going to set up a HMO, you might as well do it as many occupants as you can, because the running costs are going to remain the same. So, for argument's sake, whether you do it a 4-bed HMO, whether you do it as a 6-bed HMO, the running costs pretty much remain the same. The only difference between one may be licensed, one may be unlicensed. So a licensed HMO may be 3-story, or if you can get 6 people over 2 floors, it's still going to be unlicensed. So you've got to have a look at roughly the cost. How much are you paying the landlord? What's going to, again, going back to what's going to be the break-even point. Now, a 4 room's going to pay the bills. After you've taken off all your bills, after you've taken off your rent to your landlord, after you've taken off your management charge, etc., what's the cash flow? Does it really work as a 4-bed? Do you really need the 5th and the 6th bedroom to make a cash flow? I was looking at a property this week, only yesterday, where I would need 6 rooms to maintain a healthy profit margin. A 4-bed wouldn't cut it. That's just purely because the rent the landlord wants and the terms that he wants as well. When we took everything into consideration, it doesn't work. When it comes to more tenants being in a property equals more hassle, I would disagree with that, because it all comes down to the people that you put in the property and the mix of the people that you put together. Now, if you're going to put 2 people who are completely incompatible, by the law of averages, it has to go wrong. Whereas if you allow tenants to choose their own housemates, so you allow them to do their own viewings, which is also part of our systems, then naturally they're going to gravitate towards each other, and it's going to become a harmonious house. I've got a 8-bed HMO in Wolverhampton, and I've never chose a single tenant for that property. I've put the adverts out, I've arranged the viewings, and I've let the tenants in the property do their own viewings. And they've told me who they liked and who they haven't liked. As a result of that, we've now got 8 bedrooms fully occupied, and it's a harmonious house. Does that kind of make sense? So again, as Neil said, flip a coin depending on how you look at it. But I like to think that don't turn it down just because it's got 5 or 6 beds and you're only looking for 4-bed. You're narrowing your market far too much. So I'll tell you what, Neil, we're going to answer 3 more questions, yeah? Because that's going to take us up to our 60-minute session. I think we've covered a hell of a lot.
Why don't we just cover what we're going to cover, and then let's go back onto some questions.
Okay.
I think that's probably the best way to do this.
Right, okay. Yeah, no, that's good, because then at least we know how much time we've got. Yeah, does that make sense? Right, brilliant. So if you've got more questions, still feel free to keep pushing them, writing them through, and we'll go through them. Right, one thing that we're going to talk about is that me and Neil, we spoke about this a couple of days ago, and we thought, right, there's lots of people that keep messaging us on a day-to-day basis and how can we get involved? Now, what we want to do is we're going to be showing you how to find, we're running something called the Rent to Rent Masterclass, which is very You know, no one else is doing this to what we're going to be doing it to, and to the level of detail that we're going to be doing it to. Now, you've seen the level of detail that we've been offering on tonight's webinar. Now, just imagine that we put you in a room with me and Neil for 2 days, and you get to pretty much ask everything that you want to know about rent to rent. So we're going to be showing you on a rent to rent masterclass the 4-step process as to how to find, fill and manage HMOs and on rent to rent, and how to find landlords. So on a 2-day course with me and Neil, we'll be showing you the fastest, cheapest and most profitable way to set up your rent to rent property. We'll be giving you the cost guide for furnishing and refurbing your rent to rent portfolio, the top 5 ways to find landlords. Now, top 5 ways to find landlords. That's one of the most asked question about rent to rent. Where do I find the landlord? How do I find the landlord? We're going to be giving you a list of different ways to find a landlord. We're going to be showing you how to elegantly persuade landlords to do business with you over anyone else or doing nothing. How to find an endless supply of tenants so you never have to worry about voids. Now remember that throughout the whole presentation I've been talking about rent to rent profit calculators. I'll actually be giving you my rent to rent profit calculator, which is an easy to use spreadsheet that instantly shows you whether your property is going to be in profit from it from day one or not. You get the recording of the entire workshop, you get all the presentation slides. You also get the ASTs that we use with our tenants on a day-to-day basis. You also get our management agreements. You also get our letters that we write to landlords. You also get our letters, you also get our letter templates, you also get our leaflet templates, you also get our guarantor contracts. You also get our tenant moving in forms, and also showing you how to furnish the properties, which is also like our mind maps. You get the marketing letters that we send out to homeowners. You get the marketing letter that we send out to people on the HMO register. And you also get our landlord persuasion sheet, because sometimes landlords, when you're looking at a property, they've got 3 types of value. You've got market value, you've got below market value, and there's another one called hope value, what the landlord is hoping to achieve. Now, the landlord persuasion spreadsheet is, as it says there, what we're doing, we're showing them exactly how much money they're really making from their property portfolio. And here's what the course will do for you. It'll help you replace your job salary in 12 months. We're going to show you how to quickly jump from 0 to 1 and then 1 to 5 properties in just a year. And we'll be showing you how to find landlords pretty much as of from tomorrow, just from some portals that I use on a day-to-day basis, such as Rightmove, Spareroom, Gumtree. And we'll be showing you how to make landlords an offer they can't refuse. Because finding deals is one thing. Negotiating deals is something completely different. You can have all the deals in the world, but if you don't know how to negotiate them, those deals are kind of pointless. So we'll be showing you how to get them to say yes to your proposals every time, because it's a great deal for them and a profitable deal for you. You'll also be getting your hands on our proven checklist to refurb, furnish and fill every property with the right tenants that pay on time, look after the property and never complain, so that you know what to do, how to do and the right order to do it in, which then becomes a complex process, becomes simple and quick. And how to make your room stand out online so that your tenants call you, tenants call you first. Here's what we're going to do for the first 20 buyers, and I believe we've already got about 10 of those, so there's only 10 spaces left. We're going to actually do a 4-hour roundtable mastermind with Neil and me in my office on the 18th of May. So the mastermind is designed to iron out any kinks that you've come across by implementing the systems. So the mastermind is pretty much like a feedback session. So if you've got an issue or you're struggling to find landlords, by the end of that session, you'll have a solution for it. So normally we would charge circa around £2 for that. But today, what we're doing is we're offering it for I don't know what we're offering it for. So it's £997 for the weekend. So it's, believe it or not, we're running one this weekend. I appreciate it is very short notice, 22nd and 23rd of April. However, don't panic, because if you can't make that one, we're also going to be running a day. I appreciate we've run this very late on, just purely down to Neil and I's schedule, but we will be running. We'll be running another one in June. So another date that has been released to book your seat is the 24th and the 25th of June 2017. It's being held at the Jury's Inn in Broad Street, Birmingham, which is literally a stone's throw away from New Street Station. And like I say, you can get it for £997, and in there you're going to get all the contracts. You're going to get 2 days with me and Neil. You're going to get the additional bonus day, which is worth £497. And in order to do that, all you got to do is click that link. And if you can't make this weekend for whatever reason, all you got to do is put in the special comments box that you want to attend the one in June, and I'll make sure that we allocate you to that one. And what we're actually going to do is, we're so confident with the content that we offer that we actually offer 100% money back guarantee. So if you buy the workshop today, you risk nothing because you're covered by our 100% money back guarantee. And here's how it works. All you got to do is attend the first day, and if you're not completely satisfied with the knowledge that you received, all you got to do is say so and you get a full refund. No questions asked, no hassle, forms to fill out, no problem at all. So there you have it, guys. And whilst we're there, we're going to leave it on that link. We're going to leave it on that link there. Actually, no, in actual fact, I'm going to introduce this young gentleman. Here's a gentleman called JC. He attended our workshop back in 2015. I caught up with him earlier this year, and he's now on to 30 odd properties, generating, well, he's smashing the 30 grand mark cash flow, and his entire portfolio is in Croydon, South London. And that's how he got there, by using some of our formulas, our spreadsheets, and our documents. Now, here's another gentleman. I'm quite close to this guy, a chap called Girish. I'm actually personally mentoring him. And he was a pediatric surgeon in Birmingham. He actually had a very high salary, 120 grand a year. But he was working a very stressful 70 to 80 hours a week. And he lived for the weekends and holidays. But the problem that you got in that environment is that in his scenario, if he made a mistake in his job, someone would lose their life. But after 28 years of surgery, he decided that he had no assets, no passive income, and he felt trapped in the rat race. And his reason why to get out of it, he wanted to build the first children's hospital in Mauritius. And as a result of that, he decided to come on the rent-to-rent journey. And now he's got himself, he quit his job after coming on the workshop. He quit his job within 3 months. And now he's got a portfolio which has given him 19 rooms, 3 properties. He's taken on another property today, generating cash flow just over £3,500 a month. And then here's Susie Bates. Now, she took a property on in Leicester, which is cash flowing just over £850 a month. She's now got 4 properties in Leicester, generating over 3 grand a month. Now, the question I'm going to ask is that, are you different to any of the guys that we've just spoke about? No, you're not. All they've done is that they've put their doubts aside for long enough to give this a try, and they've achieved unbelievable results. And you've just got to hang on to the thought that you're not going to have to do another day's work in your life. You're no longer having to commute, no longer worrying about financial worries or pressures. And you can get a reliable income from property just by following the system. So that's the link. Hang on, let's have a quick look. So that's the link. So if you are interested in that, you can click on that link. In the meanwhile, Neil, we're going to carry on answering a few more questions for another 10 minutes. You happy with that, Neil?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Right, so Nigel has said, Arsh and Neil, I'm at Progressive Property this weekend, but I'm interested in attending another time. What is the date of attending the mastermind for our workshop on the 18th of May? Kind regards, Nigel. Unfortunately, Nigel, the workshop, the 4-hour session on the 18th of May is only for those that attend the workshop. So if you if you wanted to, you could book yourself onto the one in June, but still attend the 4-hour workshop in May, so that you've got a bit of a head start when you start in June. And as a result of that, anyone that books on today, okay, so hang on. So here's Larita says, can you page?
Arsh, just one thing for Nigel there. Even if you were to book on today for the June course, that would enable you to come to the mastermind day. But you would also get the recording from this course this weekend. So you would get that anyway as well as being able to come to the course in June and the mastermind day. So it's a good deal, really, and all the legal documents and everything else that Arsh has mentioned.
Okay, so here we go. So yeah, okay, so Larissa says, can you copy and paste the link in the question box, please? I've just done that. I've sent that to everyone, so hopefully you've got that. Okay, brilliant. Now, we're going to go on to questions. Okay, so Babik says that he's going to see us on the weekend. Okay. Right, going through. Do you have a solid way? Okay, so Nigel come back and says, following his question, goes, do you have a solid way of screening applicants' tenants to minimise your voids? Do you want to go through that one, Neil?
Yeah, I mean, Ash, just one thing. We've got so many people asking questions. Let's just, I think it's the third question. We'll go, I'll answer this one, then we'll go on to another. So how do I screen the tenants and things? You know what, Nigel? I actually used to originally do a lot of screening with the tenants. Now I don't really do any screening at all, which I know probably sounds quite surprising. But what I found was that we actually did a study on this, and we looked at it and we analysed it in a spreadsheet. And all the ones where I'd done all the referencing and credit referencing checks and the background check, you know, all this sort of stuff, and spoke to the last landlords, etc. All the ones that I had a problem with, their referencing and everything came back perfect. And something I actually realised, and Arsh always talks about this, is that as a landlord, if you've got a terrible tenant and you want them out your property and you're trying to kick them out, and a new landlord calls and says, "Oh, hey, what's this chap like?" There's no way you want to go, right, he's an absolute tearaway, don't take him in, etc. A lot of people are going to go, "Oh yeah, you know, he's okay, he's fine." Now, it's not something I would do personally, because I've got more integrity than that. But most landlords do that. So I'm just letting you know then that a lot of landlords will do that. So I stopped doing all the sort of referencing and all of that, and we adopted a new system. Was that, and it's not foolproof, but the new system is we go by our gut instinct and judgment on a tenant. So from the very first time they text or we speak to them on the phone, we have a lot of questions that we ask. So we'll go through a list of questions, and the idea is to get into rapport with that tenant, and then just try, you know, see if there's any red flags there. And then when we meet them in the house, again, then we'll ask them lots of questions. We'll find out a little bit about them and what they're going to be doing for a job, etc., etc. So it's a bit of a screening process. And if we get a good feeling from them, then great, we'll take them in. If we don't get a good feeling, we simply won't take them in, and we'll say the room's rented. So that's what we do now. Now, the other thing that we, quite importantly, is that we take a guarantor agreement from every tenant, and we check that guarantor. So that's one thing we do. We check that guarantor, and we get a copy of their passport or driving license, and you know, we make sure they've got a guarantor. If they haven't, then obviously we take a deposit from them. But if it's a professional tenants, we don't take deposits anymore. We just take a guarantor agreement. And since we've been doing this, we've not had a single issue. So I could keep talking on this for a long time, but I'll pass you back because I know there's loads more questions there.
Okay, so well, it's okay. So Tony says, do you have a cleaner once a week, or do you trust the tenants to keep the house clean and tidy?
Okay, so we have now we pretty much hire cleaners full time. So we started off with different cleaning companies and agencies, but what we found was it was very sporadic and it wasn't reliable. I mean, a lot of times they say they clean the property, but then the tenants say the property hasn't been cleaned in 6 weeks or something. So firstly, we have a cleaner every 2 weeks that will clean the property. Each property gets cleaned every 2 weeks. And then what we did was we found a company who were very good, and we were giving them so much business. In the end, we said, you know what, just give us full time a couple of cleaners. And they said, okay, great, yeah, we'll do that. And that's what we did. So we have this company, and we have 2 cleaners from that company that work for us pretty much full time. Now people say, well, Neil, why not just hire 2 full-time cleaners yourself? Well, the reason for that is then you've got to start doing PAYE, national insurance, they've gone to payroll, all this. I don't want to be dealing with that for the sake of £10 an hour, which includes all the materials and cleaning products. I'd rather just outsource that, pay the £10 an hour, rather than paying, let's say, £7.50 or £8 an hour. That extra couple pounds is not worth my hassle to get involved with all that.
Okay, could I just stop put in right there, Neil? Because one thing that works really well for me is that I actually find that cleaners who work in schools are fantastic cleaners for HMOs. The reason being is that they start work first thing in the morning. They go and clean schools before the schools open, and then they have nothing to do up until after the school closes. And I found that the cleaners that work really well for me are those kind of people. And so they work on a self-employed basis. So again, you pay them £10 an hour for whatever reason, and then that's their responsibility. And they can do, they can also recruit other school cleaners, and it works really, really well. So that's just a little tip. So, okay, going through. Okay, just seeing who else. I've answered that benefit question. I'm just trying to think if there's questions. Okay. So Radik has asked a question. It's it's an interesting question, but it's not really relevant for rent. But we'll ask it anyway. It goes, hi guys, how can I check if there's currently a mortgage on the property? Is there a way to find out and pinpoint mortgage-free properties in particular areas?
Yes. There's an easy way to find out if a property has a mortgage on it, and that is that you download the title deeds for that property. It's really simple to do. You get the address, and let's say it's number 12 Smith Street, and you know that's the property address. Just go on Google, do a search for the postcode for number 12 Smith Street. It will come back and give you that postcode. Now do a Google search for title deed land registry, and it will bring up the portal. And all you do is you type in the house number and the postcode and search, and it will bring up 3 documents. Now, one of those documents is the title deed, and you have to pay £3 for that. But believe me, that's a bargain. When you see people spending hundreds of pounds on leaflet drops and all this, where they get absolutely no results, a title deed gives you the address of that landlord. So it gives you you already know the address of the property, but where does that landlord live? Well, that's how you find out, through the title deed. And it actually tells you on there the land registry number, so every property's got a code. It tells you if there's a mortgage on that property. It tells you how much the property was bought for, and a whole host of information that becomes very, very valuable. So that's how you find out. And so what you could do, I mean, I always talk about this strategy a lot, but I walk the streets. Well, I don't do it anymore, but I used to walk the streets and write down every property that had a for sale, to let board outside. I would download that title deed and write letters to the landlord, and that's how I got so many properties so quickly initially. So you could do that strategy, and it will tell you the ones that don't have mortgages on, because it will show you on the deed. Now, a lot of my properties don't have mortgages on at all. I found landlords who don't have mortgages, because the thing with rent to rent, and again, it's a mistake most people make, if you find a rent to rent deal with someone that's in their 30s or in their 40s, they're probably not going to go with you. No, okay, you might get 1 or 2, but you're not going to get 80% of your properties like that. You might get 1 or 2 where someone's in their 30s or 40s, but here's what they're going to do. They're going to let you renovate the property, and then at the end, they're going to try and get a short lease, like 3 years, and at the end of that 3 years, they're going to get the property back. Now, I know, because this has happened to me twice, where I've gone with younger people, and they've watched what I've done, they've waited for me to invest the money and manage it for 3 years, and then at the end, they take it back and do it themselves. So you want to be going with landlords who are a lot older. So nearly all my landlords are pensioner age. They're in their 60s or in their 70s. I've got a few that are in their 50s, but I don't really take on anyone that's below that now, because it's just not worth the hassle, because I know what their plan is. Whereas, you know, because they're so ambitious with it, they're still young enough to be ambitious. Whereas you get someone who's retirement age, well, that gives you the clue. They want to retire. They don't want to be dealing with, oh, hi, Mr. Landlord, my light bulb's gone in my room. Can you come and change it? They don't want to be dealing with any of that. They just want to guaranteed rent, give you the keys, and that's that. I can't even tell you the amount of times that I've been in a property with a landlord, and after 20 minutes, they've just thrown the keys at me and said, there you go and deal with the property. We'll sort out the contract later. So that, I know I went around in circles there to answer the question, but I wanted to give you a little bit more insight that will really help you in this strategy.
Okay, brilliant. So, guys, I think we've covered a lot this evening. So we've been online for just over 75 minutes. If there are any other questions, you know, before I go on to that, I'm going to say thank you for taking the time to learn how to make a recurring property income without buying a house. Hopefully, you're going to find these new, you will use the new secrets that you've learned this evening to build a property business, so that you too can decide if you want to learn to quit your job. If there are any other questions that you feel like we haven't answered or we didn't get a chance to answer, feel free to, you can email me or you can give me a call direct, preferably tomorrow, and see how I can help in any way, shape or form. Just something that someone's asked is that how long is the offer open for? The offer is actually open until the lunchtime tomorrow. After lunchtime tomorrow, the price of the workshop reverts back to the full price, which is 1997. Like I said, you can attend either the one this weekend if you've got time and you've got availability this weekend, or you can attend the one that we're holding in June, 24th or 5th June, and still attend the 4-hour mastermind that we're doing in May. So hopefully you found it of interest. If there are any other questions, like I say, feel free to come back to me. But I'd like to thank you very much for your time. Hopefully you found it of great interest, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon. On that note, I'd like to say good night and God bless. Neil, anything else you'd like to add to that?
No, I think that's good, Arsh. I think it's been a good training session tonight. I think we answered a lot of questions, and hopefully we've got a lot of people started. You know, if you're not coming this weekend, then you know, I hope to see you in June. Arsh and I, we don't run many of these courses because we're both just so busy with our company. So if you do get the opportunity to come on a course with Arsh and I, we only really run a couple a year. It'll be worth your time, especially if you're not happy with your job, or you just want to get more passive income coming in or a recurring income. I think this is really the best strategy that I found in many years, and I own lots of different businesses. So it is a unique opportunity. It's probably not going to be around in the future. So you want to get in now so that you've got those grandfather rights and you've got that business set up for when things do change in the future. Just like we talked about Article 4, those people that have got the properties, they're set for life now. If they ever sell, they're made. And it's the same with this. Don't forget this is a business. Don't just look at it as a recurring income. Look at this as a business. And a business has value. So if you ever want to get out of this business and sell it in the future, well, you can make a lot of money on the back end. So I think they're my closing comments. Thanks for joining this evening. I hope I was able to give you some value. I know Arsh is always giving good value. And yeah, nice to speak to you all, and hope to see you soon.
Take care. Thank you. Good night.